What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our BKFC Reddit Ask Me Anything. We're joined by the original king of the rink, the Ice Wars edition, Mr. Daniel Diamond Hands Amesbury. How you doing, sir?
Good. Yourself?
Good. I know some people are going to be so excited, like, oh, does this mean Amesbury's fighting? You're not fighting on this upcoming fight, correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not. I had, when I just finished hockey season literally last week and pretty banged up, so I didn't really have time to get back to 100% for a fight. I really would have loved to, but not in the cards just yet. But hopefully, in one of the events coming up, I'll be able to get into. I'll be healthy and be able to get after it again.
Now, like, bare knuckle fans should recognize you. I've seen you on a tryout video before. You're one of the guys who's actually should be fighting for bare knuckle. What's the story with that? I know you've done the tryouts. I know that they've talked about having you on a card. What's taken so long?
It's just been like timing wise. Like obviously, I'm playing hockey throughout the winters, so it's kind of have a small window in the summers. So it's been something where for me, it's kind of a bucket list thing. I want to do it 100%. It's high on my priority list. I've been talking to a few guys, and it just hasn't worked out yet as far as timing and events. And with me, like as of right now for this summer, I'm pretty much out for all fighting until my season starts again. So I won't be able to fight again till the following summer, and then just got to get healthy and stuff. It was it's tough with hockey season because we're fighting bare knuckle all season long. It's not like I don't get the month or two off in between or however long some guys might get. I get sometimes I'm fighting 3-4 times in a weekend, and the hands don't really like that too much. Everything else seems to be all right, but it's always the hands. It's always the hands. So I need those to be healthy, and I'd love to do it. So hopefully we can make that happen eventually.
You're a smart guy too. Everybody thinks dumb hockey player. You train out there with Chris Camozzi and those guys at
Genesis.
Genesis at Genesis. Yeah. And then when you're back east, I see you out there training with Coach Dave. You surround yourself by two really smart camps. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, everything I do, whether it's hockey or fighting or anything like that, I just like to be surrounded with like elite athletes. And I was really grateful to grow, when I started in Danbury, kind of came out of retirement and started playing hockey again, to have Coach Dave and AJ and their gym there at Champs in Danbury, and a lot of good fighters around there. Really grateful to have those guys. And then just this past summer, I was in Denver, and I knew Camozzi through some mutual friends and whatnot. And it was great because he brought me to Genesis, and I met Coach Jake and all those guys. And I was, super, super grateful to be around a gym like that. Like a lot of elite fighters in there, boxers, MMA, bare knuckle. And I learned a lot, and got some good hard sparring in, got pieced up lots, and it was good, man. It was a really good experience for me to learn, and I think that would definitely be somewhere I'd want to go back to and train again for sure.
Is it easier to make a boxer into a hockey enforcer, or is it easier to make a hockey enforcer into a boxer?
I would say hockey enforcer into a boxer, just based on the skating. It's such a tough thing to start late. We've all skated. Everyone that I play with, we've been skating since we were 3-4 years old, and it's really hard. I would say it's one sport that's very hard to start later than 6 or 7. You don't see too many guys that are starting much later than that. There is guys, obviously, but few and far between. I think in a hockey fight, the most important thing is your ability to skate and how strong you are on your edges, because you could be the toughest guy in the world. If you're not a strong skater, I'm just going to push you and pull you, and you're going to slip, and then I'll catch you while you're on your way down. And that's the one thing you'll realize when you get, when you start playing pro and you run into the guys that I'm fighting, day in and day out, is these guys can skate. They're big, they're strong, but they're also good skaters, because you wouldn't be able to play at this level if you weren't. So that, I feel like, is probably the biggest difference, but not taking anything away from boxing, because that is, I've only really been boxing, or at least training seriously with serious fighters for I'd say the last 4 years, and it just is never ending. The amount of knowledge and the amount of stuff you can learn, from the outside, when you haven't really fought much, or when you haven't really boxed or sparred or trained too much, it seems like just such a meat and potatoes sport. It seems like, who's tougher? You just go in and you're just banging it out, and see who the tougher man is. But as you train and as you learn, it's they call it the sweet science for a reason. Like you're setting guys up, and there's so much thinking going on while you got this guy trying to take your head off. I don't think a lot of people understand that as much as the guys that have actually gotten in the ring and got banged around a little bit, because a lot of thinking, and while you're thinking, you're getting punched. So not taking anything away from the sport of boxing or any fighting.
So we talked to Charlie, the founder. He said he feels like enforcers are probably hockey fighters are probably like the best two sport like fighter or two sport athletes out there. He said because like you just said, if you can't skate, you're going to get knocked the crap out of, and if you can't fight, you're going to get like. So he said you have to be excellent at two sports in order to excel at that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like you can't just like it's very difficult for someone to just kind of come and be tough and then okay, I'm going to learn how to skate now. It's you have to be a good hockey player, you have to be a good skater, and then there's a whole other thing where you got to be tough and you got to have skills. Like you got to be a good fighter and you got to have fighting skills. And this sport in general is obviously very infant. Like it's very in its infant stages. I was in the first event. It was actually technically the second event as far as this sport, but first event for this, Ice Wars, and like everybody learned from that event. Everybody's seen like, okay, this is what it's going to take to win, and the second event, everybody came back in better shape. Everybody came back, they trained harder. Everybody, the cool part about this event, the amount of messages I've gotten from the fighters from me to me, which is a huge compliment, and they're just asking me, hey, what can I do to train? What should I worry about? What should I focus on? So guys are taking it serious, and I think that every event you're going to see guys getting better and better. And it's not like anything. It's not just it's not just two meatheads grabbing each other and going. Like there's a science to it, and there's a lot of grappling involved, and you obviously got to be tough and you got to be a good skater. So there's lots to work on in a camp for one of these events.
So we talked to the president, in the other day. He said the one thing that he's found like so fascinating about it is all the different techniques. Like when you think of a hockey fight, you think two dudes grabbing each other's jerseys and pummeling each other. But there's so much to it with the jab and tying up the arms and shit like that. It's such a thinking man thing. And like I said, you picture two meatheads doing it, but it's not. It's two very technical, smart guys, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, it's the same as like I said, most fighting sports. When you watch from the outside, that you can really think it's the most simple thing going on is just two guys banging it out. But when you start to learn and you start to fight elite fighters, you start to realize the amount of different tricks you got to have up your sleeves and the different fighting styles. And I think that was probably one of the things that helped me the most in the tournament was at the start of the round, you might find out what's working and what's not. You might have to totally change your style depending if the guy's, much taller than you or the same size as you. So having to adjust your game like that and, adjust your camps essentially for who you're fighting is very important. And I think one of the most important things too in a hockey fight is you got to be able to throw both hands. Like especially if you're a smaller guy, you have to be able to throw both hands. But I'd say lots of guys, that's definitely a way to get inside on guys. And yeah, there's lots of techniques involved in grappling too.
So the original King of the Rink, it was an open weight tournament, basically, like tough man, round robin tournament. How does a guy like you're not a giant. How does a guy like you go in there and slay all those giants? So
I was in really good shape. Like, I mean, I was grateful. I trained with Caleb Starnes. He's a friend of mine from back home, and he
sure.
obviously fought in the UFC. He has lots of fight camp experience, and so we had a lot of fun during the camp because he had no hockey background. He really had no idea what was in a hockey fight or how to hockey fight, and so we had a pretty fun camp where we kind of just worked on things and kind of came up. The cool thing I always liked about like the MMA guys is I feel like they're very creative minded and very like, there's so much going on in an MMA fight. It's a really creative sport. So with Caleb, I felt like we got really creative during the camp and created our own ways to train, created our own exercises, and then kind of came up with our own grappling drills. And, we did everything from, pummeling, we were doing wrestling stuff and Greco-Roman stuff to obviously boxing. And then, basically like, the grappling we were doing was almost like a stand-up jiu-jitsu. It was really cool what we kind of pulled out of that camp and what we learned. And that's why I'm so excited about the sport. Like I feel like from what I learned just in that first camp, I love, being able to progress those things and learn more about it and kind of be creative.
Okay, so we talked to Charlie, and he said his a big focus has been making it safer for you guys, so there won't be any more round robin tournaments. I am hearing it's kind of cool that like once you do a fight with the gloves on, supposedly you're going to be able to go bare knuckle for your next fight. Apparently, if that's something that interests you for the next event, what's it like? Is there quite a difference between punching somebody in the helmet with the glove on versus bare knuckle? Is the helmet really that dangerous to the hand? I hear some people saying like,
Yeah.
oh, it's padding, but like it looks like it hurts when you punch him in the helmet.
I wouldn't want to fight for a minute with no gloves on and a hockey helmet. I think if they got to that point where they're going to go bare knuckle, I think they'd have to do something like a
Ditch the
headgear
helmet.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or no helmet. But I feel like you can't even do no helmet because you slip and hit your head. It's just too dangerous. But I think they would have to go towards like a headgear or something like that, something that's a little softer on the hand. But I think I think it's cool. Like I said, man, like the sport's going to progress and, like the tournament was awesome. Like I'm so proud that I made it through that and it was such a cool thing, but we were pretty banged up the next day. Even me who I won, all three of my fights, I was pretty banged up the next day, as anybody who would be in a tournament would, if you fight 3 times in one night. Like I said, it's a hockey fight. You're pretty much attached to the guy. So
You're a guy who gets paid to beat people up. You punch people. How do you keep your hands? I mean, like you don't break your hands often. What do you do to have such tough hands? To have those diamond hands?
yeah, I mean, honestly, you got to just all the old tricks you hear, they work. Anything you can do to toughen it up, put like stuff that's really uncomfortable. I think like the rice bucket and sand is obviously a good one. That's kind of a classic thing. I'll do that throughout the season. That kind of honestly keeps my hands a little bit loose too. But when you're doing push-ups, doing them on your knuckles, hit the bag bare knuckle when you can. Like anything that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for them is building them up. And I know Scott Parker back in his day, he would literally punch bags with chains wrapped around his hand, which is absolutely gnarly. But yeah, just like anything that's going to toughen them up. I think for me, I'm lucky because I mean I've been fighting, in hockey fights essentially bare knuckle since I was like, I want to say my first hockey fight I was 14. So I mean I've been doing it. It started pretty consistently when I was 16, 17, and I've been doing it, all the way through in box lacrosse as well, which is Canadian like indoor lacrosse. There's fights in that too. So I've been fighting bare knuckle for since I was 16 fairly often, and I feel like that helps. I mean, I've been punching helmets off since I was 16 years old, and every time you hit something hard with your knuckles, they're going to get a little bit stronger as long as you don't break them, I guess. But unfortunately, it's just a part of the game. You're going to break them, you're going to tear muscles, and you just got to get a good doctor, get them fixed up, and recover as fast as you can.
Okay, so someone who loves hockey like yourself, who is your favorite enforcer growing up?
It's got to be Bob Probert. Bob Probert's just, I feel like he's the Wayne Gretzky of hockey fighting. I feel like, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then I really like, obviously Bugard was probably one of the most dangerous guys. I would say like those are like the two big boys. Those are pretty much top of the list for me.
What's better, a knockoff, like a walk-off one punch, lay your opponent out, or that game-winning goal score?
I mean, a game-winning goal score would be nice. I'm not quite sure I know what that feels like. But no, I mean, for me, like my job, it's like one of the best feelings I would say for me, and I had a really good experience with this year, is we were down a goal, maybe 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. My team didn't have much energy. I went out, squared up with the other team's captain, Boucher, who's a really tough cat himself, had a toe-to-toe bat, just a war. Got the boys, go to the room. We both got pretty beat up from it, straight to the dressing room, both of us. And my team came back, tied the game up, and then like right after went and scored a goal. And then we ended up taking it into overtime and winning the game. And for me, that's a game-winning goal, So I think that to me, that's kind of the best of both. But that's the best feeling in the game for me personally.
Okay, so you're the tough guy in the team. what are the rules? Like you can go up and fight anybody? Are you only allowed to fight certain people? Can you only fight at certain times? We think like, okay, they get on the ice and the guy just walks over and starts decking a guy. But there's actually there's a lot of gentleman rules and a lot of unwritten rules for fighting, correct?
Yeah, exactly. They call it the code. So essentially, yeah, there is like kind of an unwritten rule and a code amongst the enforcers, and there's guys that respect it a lot more than others. Obviously, that's just going to be wherever you go. But essentially, like the code would be like one of the main things I think, like if you take a run at, let's say my star player, if you take a run at him and you try and hit him and you try and take his head off and you hit him hard or whatever, like to me, if I'm on the ice, like I'm 100% coming to fight you, like for sure. And to me, that the code is you answer the bell, like you fight. You don't see that as much now. I feel like there's a lot of guys that try and get away from those fights because they feel like they don't have to. But to me, you fight. If you're going to take a run at my best player, you're fighting me. So that's kind of one thing, and that kind of goes for everybody, and that's why we're here. Like we're deterring people from trying to take our best players' heads off. We're trying to take any of our players' heads off, really. So that's one thing. And then, there's, don't hit guys when they get knocked down. So like in a fight, if he goes down on one knee, you're not going to hit him. You're not going to ground and pound him. It's kind of just a respect thing. But most of the guys that are fighting are generally like there'll be essentially one or two guys on each team that are the heavyweights is what we call them. And that has absolutely no weight means nothing in that term. A heavyweight in hockey is just you're fighting all the toughest guys. That makes you a heavyweight. Doesn't matter if you're 190 pounds or 240. A heavyweight's a guy that'll answer the bell against anyone, anytime. So those are generally the guys that'll fight. And, sometimes, like I said, my team doesn't have energy, and there's a super respectful way of doing it where, your coach puts you out against their heavyweight and you lined up beside him. You're like, hey man, like, would you give me one? I want to get the boys going. I got to get my team fired up. And if he does, like Boucher did that one time, he gave me that fight. I owe him one now. So
Sure.
if he comes, if I go into his barn for a game and I'm up a goal or I'm up 2 goals and he comes up to me, even if it's next season, he comes up to me and says, hey, Ames, will you give me one? I'm going to give him one just out of respect because he respected me enough to give me one when I needed to get my team energized. And it gave us the spark that we needed. He didn't have to do that. So yeah, I feel like there's a little unwritten rules and a code, but it's, honor amongst men and there's a way to do things. And we try and keep it, pretty respectful, even though, at the same time we're trying to take each other's heads off.
So when I was talking to Charlie, I had never seen Shoresy, and he was like, "You should check it out." Now I've watched like all the seasons of Shoresy's. It's a great hockey show. Like is that how it is? Like basically on your teams? I mean, does it seem like a pretty accurate representation, or is it they take a little bit of liberties?
Yeah, I would say it's like obviously they like want to, embellish it a little bit, make it a little bit funnier and all that stuff. But yeah, man, I mean, you got those guys in the room and like the different characters. Like I always thought the movie Goon was like a
Sure.
great example too. I thought it's hilarious. You always have like the one stud walking around the room, the cool guy, and then you got like the meatheads. Like there's all the goalies are always a little like there's goalies have a reputation for always being a little wacky,
Sure.
so yeah, so I feel like you watch those shows, it's pretty close, like they obviously got to make it a little bit more, entertaining and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say they definitely nail it with some of the things, and as far as characters in the room, definitely.
So I asked the Laporte twins, "What's your favorite hockey movie?"
Slapshot,
Slapshot. Okay.
or
I had never
or
seen Youngblood. I saw Youngblood
yeah.
for the first time the other day, and I was like, "This is brilliant."
Yeah, as soon as I said Slapshot, I was thinking Youngblood, but yeah, those are two of the classics. Those are definitely some old. You definitely watch those in junior when you're on the bus on a long one for sure.
Okay, somebody sent in a question. Let me ask. He said, "Ask him why he hates Pearl Milling Company syrup."
who, who said that? Oh my God, Aunt
He said,
Jemima. Yeah, because it's
he,
not real syrup. That's why it's not real syrup. Like can't stand it. You go to an IHOP and they give you this fake syrup. It's like corn syrup. It's not real syrup. It's just garbage. If you're gonna eat real syrup, you eat the real thing. It's literally called one ingredient. It's called maple syrup. They'll say it on the ingredient list. I hate it. It's like pet peeve. Can't stand it. I open my buddy's fridge. If I see that stuff, it's going in the garbage. Sorry, I'm doing him a favor, honestly. You
yeah.
know?
For those that don't know, like, you know, I grew up in Colorado. We didn't have the good maple syrup. I'm up here in northern Wisconsin now. They make like the syrup outside. It's smoky. It's literally just maple syrup. Like, it's
Oh yeah.
fantastic. It's a life changer.
Yeah, it's the good stuff. Like I say, you pay a little bit more for it, but I think it's worth every dollar. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a funny question. I'd be interested to know who it was that asked that one.
That's from your buddy AJ, who you
Of
do a lot
course,
of
yeah.
stuff with. What's it like? So AJ is supposed to be on my show next week. Can you tell us a little bit about work? I mean, the guy's a superstar. The dude was running a team while he's still in high school. He seems like a very unique slash odd duck himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why we get along so well. Like, he's a brother to me. He's my family, you know. He's uncle to my kids. Me and him have gotten really close. I only met him at the first event. Like, I reached out to him when they were looking for guys, and I wouldn't let him leave him alone. And he was kind of like, "Who is this guy?" Like, he's not very big, you know. Like, he was, "Are you sure?" kind of thing, you know. And then we just ended up getting really close. And I ended up moving my whole family to Danbury and played a couple seasons there, and we got really close. I got close with him and his family and his father Jimmy. Like, they're just such good people. And you know, as you know, AJ's in the fight game. He's been in the fight game. You know, he's I want to over 10 years now, and yeah, it's been really nice to get to know him. And I think, like, we started a podcast and we started doing that because we'd hang out and we just chop it up. And you know, we're both different cats in our own ways. And I think that's why we get along so well. But very hard worker, and if he puts his mind to something, he'll do it. And he's always been like that. And yeah, nothing but respect for him and his family, man. Like, he's a really good dude, and love getting to hang out with him and just be close with him.
So after you wrap it up, a lot of guys want to go out there and coach and do that kind of stuff. It seems like you have a real knack with the podcast. Is that like the goal? Do something behind with the microphone?
Yeah, I think, like, always trying to like parlay things. Like, this season, I felt like I took a little bit of a break from the social media, just focused on hockey, which was good for me. Like, just good to just dial in and just focus on the game and just getting better, which I did. But yeah, definitely want to continue with that and like continue growing the marketing and continue like marketing myself, marketing AJ and the whole brand in general. And you know, at the end of the day, having something to parlay in, you can't fight forever. Like, you know, how I don't know how
Sure.
long I'll be able to do this for. I've been around long enough in sports to know that your career can end tomorrow.
Mhm.
It's happened to me once, and I'm, you know, super grateful to be able to kind of come around full circle and get to come out of retirement and start fighting again and start playing again and get all healthy. But yeah, I think, like, I would love to coach too, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm always, you know, going to parlay that. I have a pretty good feeling I'll end back up in Danbury with AJ and them up there. So right now, just, you know, taking wherever hockey's, you know, going wherever hockey's taking me and going where the opportunities are right now. But yeah, I could see myself definitely ending up there back in Danbury at some point here.
Does BKFC fans get to see Diamond Hands fight on a BKFC event, or do we get to watch you fight on an Ice War event first? Which do you think happens?
I would love to do either or. It kind of just depends on the opportunity. Like, I really like I want to do a BKFC event before, like, that's on my bucket list. I've done Ice Wars, but I want to do that again. But like bare knuckle is just something that, like, the second I seen that sport was coming out, like, I was like, when it started to be like a mainstream thing and BKFC started, like, you know, I flew down to Miami with Coach Dave. We went to the tryout, and at that point, I'd only been boxing for like maybe a year and a half, like maybe 2 years. Like, I was so green, but like just eager and just like really, like, I was like, man, like, I've been fighting bare knuckles since I was, you know, 14, 15, 16 years old. Like, I'm made for this. Like, I'm not like, the one thing I can say about bare knuckle is when you get hit, like, if you know, if you're not used to getting hit with a bare knuckle, it's different, you know.
Sure.
So I always felt like that was an advantage. I'm so used to getting hit with bare knuckles, and like, and I always wanted to try it. So I'd love to do that, but also I feel like I have a little bit of work to do as far as Ice Wars too, because, you know, at the end of the day, I was the champ and I won what I think was the hardest tournament
Absolutely.
in there that they've put together. And at the end of the day, I think, like, you know, I have to come back at some point, and you know, whether it's me, you know, I got to give somebody a shot at me. Like, I can't just go hide and, you know, take my 4-0 record and, you know, kind of post up. I feel like I have to, like, I'm just not the kind of guy like that. I want to make sure I come back in and put myself out there and try and put what I got on the line against somebody else. Hopefully somebody else that has a winning record, and we can promote the sport together.
I think it's great. We're already seeing some crossovers. We got Devin Gibson from BKFC who's going to be fighting on this thing. I believe there's a former UFC fighter that's going to be fighting on Ice Wars. So I feel like there's going to be lots of crossover. I talked to the Laporte twins. They both said like, hey, that bare knuckle stuff is definitely something I'd consider fighting too. So I see lots of that, potential for crossovers and keeps you guys active, keeps you guys making money. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're a fighter, it's just more or less about the action than anything else, like always looking for the next buzz. So
okay, my last question I always ask people the very first time they're on the show. Do you remember the first time you got in a street fight, the first time you punched somebody out of anger, usually elementary schoolish, somebody not related to you?
Yeah, I remember I remember my first like real hockey fight very, very vividly. And then I remember, fighting. I was fighting when I was young, but my first like street fight was in elementary school, so I wouldn't even really count that. But like I remember my first like real street fight where it was, it was against Travis Irving. He's actually ended up playing in the National Lacrosse League as a tough guy, and we were both
Awesome.
just from the same town, and it was a real fight. And I think my sister was trying to get me to wear makeup at her wedding a few weeks later. So but yeah, definitely remember those moments. Very, very pivotal in my growth, and I feel like it's a very important thing for a young man to grow up, is to have those experiences.
Okay, before we call it a day, is there any messages for the fans, any sponsors, anything you want to get out there before we call it a day, Diamond Hands?
Just shout out to everybody that's supporting, BKFC and BKFC Ice Wars, man. It's such a rad thing to see, seeing these things, getting promoted and giving a platform to guys like me and guys like, that are in BKFC. Chris Camozzi, man, like seeing what he's doing. Shout out to him, man, the champ, like love it. And Genesis, everyone over at Genesis, Coach Jake, Coach Dave, AJ, and everyone at Champs Gym, just shout out to those guys.
Is there any chance we see you at this upcoming Ice Wars?
Maybe not this event, but possibly the Edmonton one.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome, sir. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing it, and good luck with the surgeries and everything heals up. And we can't wait to see him in the ring or on the ice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a great night. Thanks.
You too.